Is connected. There we are.
Now it's live. Here we are. Hello, everybody. This is The Skeptic and the Mystic. This is Deb and Heather. We are here with episode 55 today, and we're going to talk a little bit, piggyback on our last episode where we talked about the law of assumption. We're going to talk about, I don't know if it's next in line, but very related, the law of inspired action. So, law of assumption was, we'll dive into a little bit deeper, but one of the foundations of manifestation, for lack of a better word, how to build the life that you want, much based on your self-concept and what you assume to be true. The law of inspired action is kind of the next step of bringing it to life, right? Is that what you would say? We'll
Yeah.
get more into detail, but yeah.
Yeah. And so just like diving a little bit deeper into just the law of assumption, because I know I need to say things multiple times before I actually get it. So I know like people need to hear it, right? But when you want to change anything in your life, you have to change your belief and assumptions that you hold about it. Like
Yes.
we talked about, like, if we as women believe all men suck, right, we're never going to find a good relationship. It just
Right.
won't work that way, right? So you have to change the beliefs and assumptions about it. When you change your assumption and then you assume the presence of your desire. So what that means is when you act as if it's already in your life, like you feel the feelings as if it's already happening. Like when it says assuming the presence, like you just live it as if it's already happening, right? That when it happens first in the emotional and energetic world, then it comes into the physical world.
Yes, it's that magnetism. I
Right.
like to say, one way I like to remind people of this, and it's kind of semantics, but it really does help me, is see the feeling as a manifestation. So you're looking to manifest something in the physical world, usually because you are desiring a certain feeling, always because you're desiring. You think you're going to feel better if you have X, right? Um, so law of assumption is about, like you said, assuming that you already have it, and then assuming you are the person that you need to be, right? So it has to do with your self-concept. But when you reach that feeling state of living in the end, this all seems so esoteric when you're trying to articulate it, I guess. But when you assume the feeling of living in the end, when you can see that as the manifestation, that is really the thing you were going for all along anyway. So
Right.
then the physical thing you are wishing for, it has to be drawn to you. That's what the law of assumption would dictate.
Yeah. And there's a saying that imagination creates your reality. And I like the example of the Wright brothers. Right? They could not see, like they had no evidence, right, that what they thought, what they felt was possible, right? And they just kept living as if, big tin things could fly in the sky. Right? They just kept like acting as if it was true, right? And so they say that the more that you can vividly imagine yourself into an experience, the more quickly you can experience it in the physical world. So like feel the feeling. And if there's anybody listening who I know for me, I'm always like, yeah, but and we'll talk about those. They'll talk about all those blocks in a bit. So just hang with us. I promise we got you because I am the yeah but person. So I totally get that. Right. So the the part where this kind of falls apart, so to speak, right, is that when people are like, yeah, well, I thought it and I felt it and it didn't happen. Right? Like, I really felt like this thing was going to happen and it didn't. And there's a couple of things. First is it it may not have been for your highest good and for the highest good of the world. Or
That's
it,
cool.
yeah,
Or
or
maybe it didn't happen yet. I think
yes.
oftentimes people give up too soon. That's my opinion more than anything, but I
Hmm.
think you expect too quickly.
Yeah, yes, that is definitely one because at the end of the day, if you're doing it, I mean, if you're doing it to get a result and you're like, but it didn't happen, it didn't happen, it didn't happen, you have not embodied that actual feeling of it. If you're
Right.
still worrying about when it's going to happen, then you haven't embodied it.
You
And you,
haven't because you're still contingent on it showing up.
right. Yeah. And so when you fully step into the feeling of it and live in it, then you just are it, which, as Deb said, is what you're looking for in the first place. Right.
Mhm.
So like if you're like, it's not working, you know, this fails, it's one, like you haven't given enough time. But then the other thing is similar to what we just talked about with the Wright brothers, is that what they did not have is what's called evidence distortion. Right? And evidence distortion is when we use physical reality for what's possible to happen versus anchoring into the divine, knowing that it is actually there.
You
Right?
kind of almost have to be a little bit delusional.
Yes. And there's always this balance, like, right, I have a background as a therapist, so I'm like, okay, is there like delusional, like narcissistic sociopath, like kind of delusion?
Where's the line? Yeah.
Where's the line, right? But it's just this knowing, right? That, and we'll talk about our experiences with this a little bit later, but just you just like, I just know, and I'm just gonna, you know, like live into it. And again, if it's for your greater, like for the greater good of you and for the greater good of the world,
Mhm.
right? So the law of inspired action, sorry, okay, I don't know where my dog was. The law of inspired action is a huge piece of this. And oh gosh, I don't know about you, Deb, but I remember, like, even if you don't call it manifestation stuff, I remember like when I was in my like conservative days, like, well, I'm still conservative in many ways as far as like values and stuff, but as far as conservative religious beliefs, there was, you know, times where it was like, I'm just going to pray and God will bring the man to me. And I'm like, so are you just going to order pizza and order stuff from like this before Amazon and wait for the UPS guy or the pizza guy to show up at your door? Because you can't just sit there and just like, I feel the feeling.
Right.
That doesn't go anywhere. So like feeling without doing creates no change at all.
Right.
So I love this quote that says, we don't perform to our capabilities, we perform to our beliefs. Like
Yes.
if we think that we're less than we are, then we will be. So if you
Right.
think that you're not going to have a successful business, then your actions are going to completely support that. If you think that you're ugly and no one will ever love you, your actions will create that,
Yeah.
right? Inspired action is connecting to the feeling of the desire and then taking action that's inspired from the person that you're becoming, not from the person that you are currently.
Right. You can get a lot of examples. If you look at really successful elite athletes, many of them will talk about visualization and, you know, like they, I'm so not a golf person. I know Tiger Woods is one of them, but also whoever the other really big old dude is.
Jack Nicholson? No,
That
actor.
Nicholson is the actor.
Right. Something like that.
We're gonna get all the criticisms from the, you know, the
Right.
male side of not knowing our
know.
athletes.
Right.
So I shouldn't use them as reference apparently, but in any case, I'm going to. But they will share stories of they actually visualize the ball going in the hole and then create this kind of like reverse scenario of with texture, with like they feel that feeling of knocking it into the hole, and they, you know, they kind of live from the end in that experience, really feel the success, and that's how they can keep repeating that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I mean, that probably seems like, how do you relate that to real life? But really, that's, you're, as we said when we talked about law of assumption, you are doing it anyway. If you're getting results you don't like, you are still creating them. Your actions, your beliefs, everything is leading you to that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you get to choose, right? And I love, I mean, I know, Deb, you know that I ask this question all the time. You know, my clients, it's like, you know, who do you need to be too? Like I am so, like, hate's a strong word, right? But I hate in the coaching world when people are like, you know, what, like, well, how do I do this? What do I need to do? And I'm like, no, like, who do you need to be? Like, if you were this person, right, what would that person do? And then that's inspired action, right? Because you're like, oh, as this person who has this type of business, has this type of partner, these are the things that I would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then when you step into that feeling, when you step into that being, that becoming, right? Then you get these like intuitive like hits where you're just like, I don't know why I should do this, but I don't know. Like, I don't know. I just got this idea, right? Or
Mhm.
just little breadcrumbs. And
Yes.
like, I know a lot of times people think like, oh, I should have these big, hairy, audacious things happen. And at least in my experience, it's always been like I've had this vision, this knowing of something, and it didn't happen overnight. There were just little steps, like little things that I needed to do. And then like eventually I was like,
Yes.
oh, look at that.
I
Right?
want to kind of double on that because when you were saying people sometimes give up, we were talking about, oh, they think it didn't happen yet because we miss those little steps along the way. If you don't like notice, acknowledge, appreciate the little things along the path, then sometimes you miss your opportunities for inspired action. I think also thinking of it like the flow state, right? Like when it just seems to be like you're kind of moving along and the doors just kind of keep opening and you're like, oh, I now I see I'm headed in the right direction. You might not be anywhere near your end goal yet, but knowing you're headed in the right direction is part of the feeling, the manifestation, the whole process.
Yeah. So that leads us perfectly into, for those of us who need like, okay, here's our steps, right? Is like how to know if the action is inspired.
Mhm.
Right? And as Deb said, like if it feels good, right? If you think about doing that thing and it feels expansive, you like just in the core of who you are, you're just like, yeah, I just kind of need to do that, right?
Mhm.
Then that is an inspired action. If it's based in fear, like, oh, I should do this because I, might lose this money, or I should do this because I might miss out on this opportunity, and this opportunity will never come around again. That's not inspired action.
I want to add to that one though, because um, I think some of this might also be, like in human design, I'm a sacral authority. I don't have like an emotional authority about me. So I have a very quick, like, I can just feel it very instantly, like, that's for me, or that's not for me. Right. But the fear piece for me, in my experience, and I don't think this is always true of everyone, there's a difference between the fear of, oh my God, that's dangerous.
Yes.
Right. Or the fear that is maybe more like excitement.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So the fear of like, "Ooh, God, that might be a bigger thing than I think I'm ready for." That's not the fear to run from necessarily, right?
Yeah.
I I
Yeah.
think
I
there's
think there,
differentiation there.
definitely a great distinction. There's the fear that you feel when you know that it's going to expand you
Yes.
versus the fear that you're like, well, and even when that other fear comes up, right? And again, we'll talk about this also, but like as far as distortions that come up from it, but even that other fear gives you really great information to say what are the distortions and the blocks and the trapped emotions and trauma that I have that are keeping me from this.
Right.
But
Right.
it's, and I don't even know if fear is the, it's just looking at, is your action based off of scarcity? Like if I don't do this, then I'll lose out
Right.
versus, wow, this feels scary, but kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
know that like, fuck, this is, excuse my language, but like, this is like, I am on the precipice of something new. Holy crap.
Right.
Right.
Which
Versus
I would say, do you know what your authority is in human design?
I am emotional, I'm pretty sure.
You are. Okay, that's good because you can offer that different insight because again, it's not like a simple like I feel things in my body very strongly, and I know that's a strategy that a lot of people will utilize is like really tuning into that feeling of fear. Where do you feel it in your body? How do you like sit with it for a while? But I think especially for anybody that is an emotional authority, you have to ride through that before you can make that decision without it being influenced by your emotions, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, I can't find mine. I can't find my thing. But I've had so many times where I just had a knowing. Like
Yeah.
I just knew that I just knew. And I was like, nope, do this. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I think it comes in different, I mean, it's not like you're always going to instantly know. Because, and even for me, like I did just say a few minutes ago, like I know pretty well, like for me, not for me. There's lots of things in life where I'm like, I'm going to sit on that one for a few days and then decide how I feel about it. I mean, like there's levels of this.
Yes.
But the inspired action piece, like as we started to say, sometimes it is just something little, like all of a sudden you decide to turn left and take a different route to work, right? Like, and then you encounter like some new coffee shop you didn't see before and you stop in. Like it's little things that you wouldn't even think that mattered, right? But that is still a little bit of an inspired action. If you get that nudge to like, no, turn left here, try it, right? Try it
Yeah.
with the little things that seem inconsequential,
Yeah.
It's a good way to experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know that if it's inspired action, it feels good. You also, if it feels comfortable, even if it feels out of your comfort zone, it still feels comfortable. Like you're like, oh, I knew this. Like it's kind of like when you're like I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we were on this course, and she's like, it's like I already knew this stuff. I just didn't have the words for it. Like it just, felt comfortable. Right.
Mhm.
Where if it's non-inspired action, it comes from impatience. Like it doesn't, like you just have to push. Like I used to
Yeah.
work at this restaurant, and this guy, we'd ask for food and he's like, don't push, don't push, like he's like, don't push the cooks. Like it's coming, it's coming. Like
Yeah.
just wait. Right.
Well,
Um,
I think all of that also leans on force versus the
yes.
allowing piece, right? Like if you're trying to force something to happen in your life, in the case of, a job change or a relationship, if you're trying to like force that thing to happen, then that's probably not inspired action.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So another way to know if it's inspired action is it fun? Like, life is meant to be enjoyed, right? If it's controlling, that is not inspired action. But if it's fun, right, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Which that's hard for a lot of women and a lot of men. It's hard for
Yes.
humans. It doesn't
Yes.
matter what gender you are.
Yes.
Like
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm sure we'll get to it, but I also want to make sure like we don't leave anybody feeling like when you are operating not from inspired action, you're not screwing it all up. You're still on the right path. Just take note. Take
right.
note of these times when you're making these decisions in the ways that we're saying are on the opposite end of inspired action, and then see where that led you, right? Like just take note, make the next best choice next time, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't think you have to beat yourself up if you did make a choice that wasn't fun or was based in scarcity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Deb already touched on this one, but inspired action, it comes unexpectedly. You're just like, I don't know where that came from versus I need to know how. Like when you're in a place of inspired action, you're open. Like I love this coach that I'm working with. She talks about like your only job is to receive. The universe
Mhm.
wants to give to you, and it will give you whatever you ask for, as we've talked about many times, right? Because the universe, it's neutral. Like every single thing is neutral. Like you being poor is neutral, you being rich is neutral. It's like you ask for it, it's like here, yes,
Yeah.
we'll say yes, right? And so, but just letting things, instead of trying to make it happen and trying to figure it all out, just letting it flow. Um,
I
and
think that is a challenging one for people, especially depending on your personality. If you're a pretty type A go-getter, you make a decision, you want some end goal, you can probably be the type that runs full steam toward it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're working from these laws of the universe, it is more of a gentler kind of
mhm,
set the intention and yes, take the steps, but then kind of sit back and let it unfold.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's inspired action. Just let it happen in its own timing. Ego
Mhm.
based is attached on the outcome. I can't feel good until this happens.
Mhm.
So, that leads us to, I'm going to jump into the blocks and distortions and like disempowering codes that happen when keep us stuck in this place. Right. So,
Mhm.
um, I mentioned this one already is the evidence distortion. It's when we look to reality, to physical reality, right, versus anchoring into the divine knowing. Right? I mean, you're in Arizona, I'm in North Carolina. We're literally talking to each other through these boxes. Like easy, right? And so if, all of the people that were involved in creating this technology, anchored in the physical reality, they'd be like, there's no way that can happen. Right. They,
Totally.
they just were like, no, we know that this can happen.
Right. Right.
So if you are plugged in to this evidence, like I need to have evidence that it can happen, right? That is a block or distortion that needs to be cleared. Right? Then the other one is the when then, right? When this
Mhm.
happens, then I'll feel, right? When I get this house, like then I can feel satisfied. When I get this partner, when I get this job, when I have the money in my bank, then I can feel that.
Yes.
Right? Stop it. Like,
Right?
just
I feel like we've touched on that one in so many different ways, but that is a huge one.
yeah, it
Because you're
is.
still living from I mean, also, I think isn't there kind of the concept of being what is that thing about being in the world, but not or of the world, but I can't remember which way it goes. I'm gonna
Yeah,
screw it up.
yeah,
But, it is kind of the not pinning all of your happiness, security, whatever good feelings you're looking for on the external
right,
world,
right,
you know? Because really, truly, when you can find that, like, within, you you can't be screwed with. Nothing can really bring you down. Like, that sounds so cheesy, unicorns and rainbows, but truly, it's like it is I guess that's like the Buddha enlightenment piece, right? That's the middle way. Like, you're just kind of it's great right here. It's great right
right,
here, you
right.
know? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and so the other thing that blocks us from that is, and Deb and I talk about this a lot, is having a heart wall, which is essentially this wall of trapped emotions around your heart, because your heart sends out electromagnetic frequencies, right? That other people can pick up on, and you're picking up on theirs, they're picking up on yours, and if this is blocked, right, that doesn't go out, and it doesn't go out to other people, it doesn't go out to the universe, and so people are like, why do I always struggle? Why is this always happening? Why can't I be successful? Da, da, da. You may have this literal block that's keeping you from being open and receiving it. And our heart connects us to our so we have our chakra system, which is our energy centers. For anybody who's like, okay, chakras, that's just too woo woo for me, right? Like I get it. And when we look at science, like we have an endocrine system, and we have different systems within our endocrine system. We have our sexual glands, right? And in the chakra system, that's all about your right to be here and to feel safe in the world. Right. And then your sacral chakra, which is the next one up, and I'm pointing, you can't see, but like right below my belly button, that is all about like feeling in the world. And if you don't feel like you can feel, like you feel your emotions, right? You're like, I can't feel anything. Like Heather, you say if I feel it, then it'll happen. But I can't feel it. Well, there might be some like stuff that's stuck in your sacral chakra. Um, in your solar plexus, which is right in the it's like in between the belly button and the lower ribs, right?
Mhm.
I always get that one. I'm always like, is it belly button right above? But
It's
um,
yeah, it's just a little bit above.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's all about like to act in the world. And if you feel like you can't move forward, like you have this idea, but you feel blocked from moving forward, like you keep hitting this invisible wall, right? There might be some trapped emotions, traumas, distortions that need to be released from your solar plexus. And then your heart, like, as I mentioned, it's this big electromagnetic field, but it connects. It's like if you imagine a river flowing through you, it connects those lower three that I just talked about to the upper three, which I'll get to. And so if that heart is blocked, you don't have communication from top to bottom. And
Yeah.
so people are like, I could see it, but nothing's happening because you just can't literally move forward in here. Or if you're like, I keep doing, but nothing is happening, right? Then you're maybe be blocked in the upper chakras. Okay?
Mhm.
So your throat is all about speaking, like speaking that vision. Your brow is about seeing, like just being able to see the vision clearly. And then your crown is all about knowing, just having this knowing that like it's going to happen. And if
Yeah.
you're like thinking of something that you want, whether it's a relationship, whether it's money, and you're like, I don't feel like safe for it to be here, to even feel the emotions of it, to act on it, to like feel in love with it, I don't feel safe to speak it out. I don't see it. I don't have a knowing. Your chakras might need to be cleared out. It just might need to happen. I have a whole coaching session that I do with people where we go through and energetically clear those out, like in
Mhm.
regards to your manifestation that you want. So those could be all things that are blocking you. And know that, like as Deb said, like it's human and normal to have them.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I never want us to be giving advice and people to feel ashamed or like it would be completely stunning if any human on this earth got to anything near adulthood and did not have
Right?
some sort of blocks or trauma or I mean, because by nature of being human, you've been conditioned, you've been programmed. And some of that programming and conditioning fucked you up a little. I
Right?
mean, there's really no way around it because we all come into this body with kind of a clean slate, but your parents, your community, whatever you've been exposed to has tried to mold you, right? And chances are they didn't mold you into the perfect version that you were as an untouched being, right? You are not your parents, you are not the community, you are your own being. And so whatever conditioning was put on you, whatever experiences you have that create these blocks, none of them are they're not your fault and they're not like they just are. They're part of the human experience, but we can help to reset that and bring you back toward that authentic being that you were when you showed up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're feeling like, like I keep trying to manifest this, but like I see it, but I take action and nothing happens. Or I take action, but I don't really see a vision, or I see vision, I keep taking action, but I keep coming up against this invisible wall. More than likely, there's distortions, there's blocks, there's trapped emotions and trauma that need to be released, right?
Mhm.
Because we are energetic beings. And so, but as I mentioned already, like when you're thinking about the thing that you desire, just ask, like, say that thing, and then hear all of the yeah, but that tells you why it can't happen, and
Mhm.
write them down. Because until we make the subconscious conscious, it will continue to direct your life, and you will call it fate. Right? So
Mhm.
you have to get it clear. And my coach also talks about this quote from Dolores Cannon. Do you follow her?
Mm-mm.
So, she's an older woman. Well, she's a dead woman now, but she's no longer with us. I don't know why I said it like that.
I don't know.
I spent a lot of time in a cemetery for anybody who doesn't
Yeah.
know, because there's a 72-acre cemetery, and so we walk through there every day. The dogs play there, and I don't think anything of it.
Yeah.
People that I hang out with there don't think anything of it, and I forget that, like, it's unusual. Like,
Little well, I mean, I don't mean to laugh. I don't know why that was funny. Sorry. Apologies to anybody that felt we're real, we're human.
right, exactly. But she talks about, oh crap, what was it? If you can see it, like, then it's meant to happen. No, that wasn't the quote, and it wasn't even by her. But when she says, this isn't, I don't think this is by Dolores Cannon. It's when dang it, now I'm going to forget. Along the lines of when it's spoken, the spell is broken, right? And
Oh,
like when it's spoken out loud, like you break the spell. When we're under spells, right? It's these words that have these magical powers to us. And think about it, so many things that your parents have said to you when you were younger, all like put these spells on us to say we're not enough, we're not worthy, we're not deserving, and we're under this spell that we're not, right? And once we can write down, like, okay, what are all those things that tell me that I'm not, and get it on paper and look it in the eye, it's literally like pulling the sheets up from your bed and looking underneath and looking at the boogeyman and being like, oh, that's it,
yeah. That's it,
right?
right? That's
Right?
funny. Yeah, that reminded me, um, I don't know why I just always get a kick out of this, but of the idea that words really do matter. That's why they call it spelling.
Spelling, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And we often don't even, like, we just think, oh
We
well.
don't think about the fact that we literally are casting spells for, we're with every thought, with every action, with every word we speak for ourselves, for others, right? It does matter.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just write down all those yeah buts, right? And then have a conversation with them. And like we talk about in the world of personal development, they talk so much about like, oh, I gotta conquer my fears, I gotta kill my fears. And that doesn't work, right? It's like we have
Yeah.
to just befriend them. If you think about, two ends of a like a seesaw, right? You can't, like, we have to have both. And both of them are there to help us.
Mhm.
they have the same intention. They're just going about it in a different way, right? So have a
Yes.
conversation, get curious about it, right? Reach out to us to let us help you get energy work done on it. Like it
Yeah.
is, I mean, I share this all the time. It's so cool whenever people are like, oh my gosh, like I used to believe this, we worked on it. Like, yeah, I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, whatever it is that you desire, whether it does come into the physical world or not, it doesn't matter. If
Right.
you can live in those feelings and emotions and not and be undisturbed by, the external things, that's what you were ultimately going for.
Right. Right. Back to full circle. The feeling is the manifestation.
Right. And I'm
That's
not
that's what you were going for all along,
all
right?
along. Exactly.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I can see the progress in myself. And then many ways, there's still a lot of progress.
Oh, for sure. I 100%. By no means are we talking like, "No, I figured it all out. Let me tell you how it's done." It's
Yeah.
all a work in progress and sometimes successful more than others. I think, we were gonna talk about different ways, like and sometimes I think I have even failed to recognize my own successes in this stuff because some things happen so easily you don't even really like see them as something that was created in this way. And then other things, I've mentioned it so many times, but this house that I'm living in, it's a rental, and I was in a crazy situation when I needed a place to live. I did not have the money immediately accessible to pay for a monstrous security deposit. Like it was a ridiculous situation, very timeline driven, and I just remember sitting there like I need to come up with what felt like so much money so immediately, and I was like, I know this money exists. I know that it's there for me. And how it came to me was all so many seemingly random,
Mhm.
like just incredible lucky situations, but in reality, I think that was exactly what we're talking about here. Like
Yes.
I and it was even to the point of I decided to go meet a friend for lunch at a particular restaurant that at the time I thought I should not be going out to lunch because I am in this ridiculous situation of needing money. The last thing I should be doing is going out and spending money on lunch. At that lunch, I ran into a friend who I had not seen in a while who was like, "What's been going on with you?" Because I was going through this was all spurred partly by a pretty traumatic breakup. And so I saw her at that lunch. I almost broke down in tears. She had to run and go meet somebody else, but she was like, "Call me later. I really want to hear about this." Telling her the situation, and while I'm on the phone with her, she Venmoed me an enormous amount of money. At the time felt enormous, and said, "This is not a loan. This is a gift. I want you to get out of this situation." And that was one of the biggest catalysts in me being able to get into this house. And it was. So I mean, like, if you think about that in the context of what we just said.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And like, I'll share this and just as we wrap up. In 2008, I was standing in a bakery in New York City, and it was a gluten-free, allergen-friendly bakery. And I literally just heard, "You're going to do this, and it's going to be free of even more things." I'm like, what? Like, what? I barely went to bakeries growing up. So it wasn't like I aspired to own a bakery. And it just like all of a sudden consumed me. I'm like, I don't know how to open up a bakery. And it was not only bakery, but free of gluten, dairy, eggs, soy, corn, and refined sugar. And I had
And you met a handsome man there, right? This is the total setup for the Hallmark movie.
yeah, I did meet a handsome man, and we did date for a little bit, and he turned out to be a liar. He lied about so many things, but
Still a Hallmark movie.
we had really great sex. For the time that it was being, it was good. It helped heal a lot of other things for me. So it was really
Right.
good. But at the time, this is back in 2008, 9, right? Now, gluten-free, dairy-free is not a big deal. But
Right.
then it was a big deal, like big,
Yeah.
big deal. And so I just kept like, well, I'm going to do this. And I didn't know how to do it, but I just started recipe testing. And then I was talking to people, and then I'm like just playing around with logos, like did all these little things. Like, and it didn't happen. Looking back, I'm like, okay, I had the idea in '08. I got somebody to say that they wanted to back me in '09. We opened in '10. We opened January of 2010. By the end of that year, we had Food Network calling us, asking us to be on Cupcake Wars. Okay, that's a crazy thing too, because the night before I'd come home from the bakery. I was working like 80 hours a week, came home that night, crashed on the couch, turned on the TV, and turned on Food Network because that's what a chef watches, you know.
Yeah.
And Cupcake Wars was on. I had never seen it, and I remember watching it and thinking, there's no way I would ever be on this show. I get to the bakery next day, check my voice messages, and there's a Food Network. Hey, we'd like to have you in audition to be on the show. And I was like, oh shit, right?
Also proof of there. It's just neutral. You said no, but
right.
The universe heard. Oh, you want that?
Right. Exactly. Yep. And so it was all these little things. And all I knew to do was to be a person who embodied somebody who made things that were free of gluten, dairy, eggs, soy, corn, and refined sugar. And for anybody who's ever had my stuff, it's amazing. And I don't say anything like, oh, you're being cocky. I'm being honest. Like, stuff is good. Like, anybody who has it. And I don't make it that much anymore. You know, you can go to my website, heathery.com, and go to books and get my cookbook. But like, I did not know how to do all of those things. I just kept doing one little step at a time. And I just had that knowing that like had to do this. I didn't know how it would come to fruition. Right. But it's those tiny next steps that you just listen to. And it's easier to listen to yourself when your body is not filled with distorted codes, trapped emotions, and trauma. And that's the one thing that I think a lot of people just don't talk about when they talk about this stuff is like, just believe it. It's like, yeah, but we got to get the gunk out. So
absolutely.
We would love to help you clearing out that gunk. So, you reach out to us, Deb is, if you're watching this now, you can find her on Instagram, on her site, and same with me. We'd love to help you with this stuff. We're going to look at universal laws over the next couple of episodes, but next, unless something changes, we do have a guest scheduled for our next session talking about past life regression, which super skeptical me is like, oh, but I know I'm
so curious.
Yeah. So we'll dive into that. So we will see you on our next episode, and let us know what you thought about this and what you took away from this. Okay. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.